My name is Daisy. I'm 34 years old. And I used to think my family was my anchor, the one unshakable part of my life that I could always trust. That belief shattered one quiet Sunday evening. With a sound so small it shouldn't have meant anything, just a click. But that sound changed everything. It was around 9 at night. I'd finished dinner, a simple one. Reheated leftovers from the fridge and was curled up on the couch in my Lexington home, scrolling through work emails. I just called my parents like I always did on Sundays. Always did on Sundays. It was a small tradition that kept us connected, or so I thought. The conversation was routine. Mom, Niamh, was talking about her garden again, how the neighbor's cat kept digging up her tulips. Dad, Michel, grumbled about the rising price of gas and how the news had become unbearable. Then, of course, there was Ella, my older sister, who'd recently started another one of her projects. This time, it was a podcast she swore would take off. They were comfortable. Familiar voices. Voices that had filled my life for as long as I could remember, even when I moved out. Even after I became the one paying most of their bills. When we said goodnight, I smiled. Mom said, "Love you, sweetie." Dad mumbled, "Take care now." I hit the screen to end the call, but then I hesitated. I don't know why. Maybe I was distracted. Maybe fate has a way of making sure you hear what you're not supposed to. Because I didn't hang up completely. There was a faint click. Then a pause. Then their voices. Still their dot at first. I thought it was a glitch. Sometimes calls hang for a few seconds before dropping. I almost pressed end again. And then I froze. Dad's voice came through first. Cold. Dry, mechanical. Living with her is unbearable. I can't take it anymore. My heart stopped. Mom's voice followed, sharp and steady. Just hold on, Michelle. We can't leave yet, not until we're sure about the money. Money? My mind went blank. For a second, I thought they must be talking about someone else. Maybe a neighbor, maybe a cousin. But then Dad said my name. Daisy thinks we're staying out of love, but you and I both know the truth. Without her, we'd lose everything. The phone grew heavy in my hand. I felt my pulse in my throat. We'll stay, Mom said, her tone matter of fact. We'll keep things calm. Ella's already working on her end. We just need to make sure Daisy doesn't get suspicious. Then came the sound I'll never forget. Ella's laughter. A high, cruel sound that sliced right through me. Double quotes. Oh, please. She's never suspicious. She actually thinks she's the responsible one. Her voice had that smug lilt I knew too well. The one she used when she thought she was the smartest person in the room. She's too soft, Ella added. You can tell her anything and she believe it. I mean, look at how she handled Grandpa's inheritance. She practically handed it over on a silver platter. There was a beat of silence. Then my mom laughed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't loud. But it was enough to make my stomach twist. Well, it's a good thing she did. Otherwise, we'd be in serious trouble. I couldn't breathe for a few seconds. The words didn't register as real. It was like watching a scene from a movie, only I was the punchline. I wanted to hang up. I wanted to throw the phone across the room, but I couldn't move. Dad's voice broke through. Again, you think she ever find out? Mom hummed, not if we play it right. She's too busy with work. She won't notice the little withdrawals. Withdrawals. That word jolted me back to reality. My eyes drifted to my laptop sitting on the coffee table, open to a spreadsheet I'd made just the week before, budgeting out the next few months. I'd been covering their utilities, the groceries, even Ella's rent for the last year. I told myself it was temporary, that they needed me. But now, I realized something I'd never dared to think before. They didn't need me. They were using me. And worse. They were laughing about it. I sat there in silence. The only sound, the faint static of the open line. Mom's voice softened. The way she always did when she wanted to manipulate someone. Just don't push her too hard. She gets suspicious when she feels cornered. Ella snorted. Relax, Mom. I've got it handled. I'll talk to her about that investment idea this week. If she thinks it's for my business, she cave. Good, Mom replied. We just need a few more months. Once that's done, we can figure out what to do next. Dad's voice, quieter now, almost hesitant. What about the house? Mom didn't hesitate. We'll make it work. She owes us that much after everything we did for her. Everything they did for me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to yell that I'd worked for everything I had, that I'd pulled myself out of debt, built my career from scratch, and never once asked them for a dime. But I didn't make a sound. I just sat there, heart pounding, staring at the empty space in front of me like it might offer answers. Eventually, the call disconnected on its own. The silence that followed was deafening. I stayed on that couch for what felt like hours. My fingers were cold, my throat dry. The lamp beside me flickered, a faint buzz filling the quiet room. And I realized my whole body was shaking. My parents' words kept looping in my head. Unbearable. Money. Withdrawals. She owes us. Each word carved itself deeper, like etches on glass that couldn't be undone. I stared down at my phone. The call log glowed on the screen. Call ended 43 minutes. 43 minutes. That's how long it took to ruin 34 years of trust. When I finally moved, it was slow, robotic. I set the phone on the coffee table and stared at it like it might come alive again. My reflection in the black screen looked like a stranger's. Pale. Eyes. Wide. Hollow. A thought slipped in. Quiet but sharp. Had it always been like this? Had every kind smile, every "we're proud of you," every "thank you" been part of the act? Had they always seen me not as Daisy, the daughter and sister, but as Daisy, the provider? The more I thought about it, the more memories warped in my head. Mom's constant comments about how lucky I was to have such a good job. Dad's repeated, "You've got things easier than we did." Ella's half-joking, half-serious jabs about me being the family ATM. I used to laugh those off. Now they felt like red flags I'd ignored because I wanted to believe in love, not convenience. Outside, the world was quiet. Lexington nights have this kind of stillness, the kind that feels heavy rather than peaceful. The hum of distant traffic, the faint bark of a dog somewhere down the block. I walked to the window and stared out at the dark streetlights, the shadows stretching across the pavement. Everything looked the same. But I wasn't the same. My body felt like stone. My mind spinning. I thought of my grandfather, the one person who'd truly believed in me. He was the reason I even had money to help my family. He'd left me a modest inheritance when he passed. "Use it wisely," he'd said in his final letter. "And don't let others decide what your kindness is worth." At the time, I hadn't understood what he meant. Now I did. I didn't cry that night. Not once. I think some betrayals are too big for tears. Instead, I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and started typing. Not emails, not work, just words, fragments, thoughts. They don't love me. They love what I give. I've been financing their comfort. They think I don't know. Line after line until the words blurred into one long confession, a journal entry I never meant to write. I needed proof. I needed to see it on paper, to make it real, because part of me still wanted to deny it. Still wanted to believe that I was misunderstanding. But the truth didn't care about what I wanted. It just sat there. Heavy and undeniable. Voice strengthens, subtle determination forming. By midnight, I'd stopped shaking. Instead, I felt something new, something fierce. Unfamiliar. Resolve. If they saw me as a bank, I'd close the vault. If they thought I was too naive, I'd show them just how alert I could be. I opened my banking app, hesitated, then closed it again. Not yet. Not until I was sure. The first rule of betrayal: never let them know you know. So I planned. Quietly, I'd wake up tomorrow, make breakfast, act normal. I'd smile, listen, watch, and I'd find out just how deep their lies went. That night, that single, accidental phone call became the line between who I used to be and who I was about to become. Because once you've heard the people you love unmask themselves, there's no going back. That call didn't just reveal the truth about my family. It revealed the truth about me, about how far I'd go to protect what was mine. Ugh. The next morning, I woke before sunrise. The house was still. wrapped in that heavy quiet that comes before daylight. The air smelled faintly of coffee grounds and detergent, a familiar scent that used to mean comfort, but now it felt staged, like the props of a life that wasn't mine anymore. I moved through my routine on autopilot, brushed my hair, ironed my blouse, fixed breakfast, each motion rehearsed, mechanical. I wasn't thinking about food or work. My mind was still trapped in the echo of that call. Every word replayed in perfect clarity. Living with her is unbearable. We can't leave yet. Not until we're sure about the money. I couldn't shake it. When Dad walked into the kitchen, the air shifted. He mumbled a half-hearted good morning, eyes locked on the newspaper like it was a shield. His hand trembled slightly as he poured coffee, spilling a drop that darkened the edge of the counter. I noticed. He noticed me noticing. Then he turned the page, pretending he hadn't. Mom followed a minute later, humming too loudly, too cheerfully, like someone whistling in a haunted house. She talked about the neighbor's new SUV, about how maybe it was time we upgraded ours. Her smile stretched too wide, her eyes never quite meeting mine. Then Ella wandered in. She didn't say good morning. She never did. Her hair was unbrushed, her robe hanging loose, and her thumbs were flying across her phone. Probably posting something about how hard it was to be an entrepreneur. Coffee? I asked, my voice calm, neutral. She barely glanced up. Sure. As I poured it, I studied her reflection in the glass cabinet door. She was smirking at something on her phone, something that made her roll her eyes and shake her head, like the world was beneath her. Nothing about that morning was ordinary, even though it looked like it. Every word, every gesture, every silence felt weighted with deceit. For the first time, I saw them as a unit, not a family. A team, and I was the marked dot. When breakfast ended, I collected the dishes while they drifted into their routines. Dad sat at the table with his paper. Mom started cleaning a spotless counter. Ella vanished into her room. I stood by the sink, scrubbing the same plate over and over until the water went cold. My reflection in the window looked blank, controlled. I needed to keep it that way. That night, I opened the note app I'd started. Monday, 8:40 a.m. Dad avoids eye contact. Mom, overly cheerful. Ella on phone. Indifferent. Added, they seem tense. Maybe they suspect something. I didn't know what I was building with these notes. Maybe evidence. Maybe sanity. But writing things down made it real and made me sharper. Over the next few days, I watched. Dad asked about my salary again. His tone dressed up as curiosity. Your company's still giving those quarterly bonuses? I nodded, pretending not to notice the way his eyes flickered with calculation. Mom started dropping little comments. 2. I saw this beautiful watch downtown. You should treat yourself. Or maybe your father. He deserves something nice after all his years working. The word deserves hung between us like bait. Then there was Ella. Always online. Always scrolling. She said she was redesigning her website. I didn't believe her. Not after hearing about investment and accounts. When she caught me looking over once, she flashed a smile that didn't reach her eyes. What? You think I'm up to something? She said. I forced a light laugh. Of course not. I lied, and she bought it. It felt good in a strange way. To be the one holding the secret this time. By Wednesday, I couldn't stand guessing anymore. I needed proof. After dinner, while Mom and Dad watched TV and Ella disappeared into her room, I opened my laptop in the study. I logged into my bank account. At first, everything looked fine. Bills, mortgage, utilities, the usual trail of transactions that built the rhythm of our shared lives. But when I looked closer, I noticed them, small transfers, odd labels, consulting, maintenance, miscellaneous, amounts that didn't fit. $500 here, $800 there, scattered like breadcrumbs. Then, a pattern. Every one of those transactions led to an account number that didn't match anything I'd ever used. I copied it, pasted it into a quick search, and my heart dropped. The name attached to it wasn't mine. It was Ella's. My chest tightened. My hands shook so hard the mouse slipped from my grip. I stared at the screen, hoping I'd read it wrong. But there it was, her name, her account, transfers going back months. Thousands of dollars siphoned away. It wasn't just betrayal. It was theft. I sat back in the chair, the blue light of the screen washing over me. My mind scrambled to make sense of it. I'd given them everything. Paid their bills. Covered Ella's debts. And still, it wasn't enough. They'd taken more quietly, deliberately, as if they had a right to it. The anger came slow, building from somewhere deep. It wasn't loud or fiery. It was cold, clean, like a switch flipping from love to logic. I took screenshots of every transaction, every date, every amount, every note. Then I created a folder labeled Household Expenses. Inside it, I renamed each file something mundane. Receipt_01, budget_Jan. Notes. They'd never notice. I backed everything up on a flash drive and hid it in a jewelry box under my bed. For the first time, I was the one with secrets. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake listening to the faint sounds of the house. The refrigerator hum. The creak of the hallway floor. Around midnight, I heard footsteps. Soft ones. Ella. They passed my door. Then stopped. For a few seconds, silence. Then the sound of her opening the cabinet where I kept my laptop. I sat up, heart hammering. A few more shuffles. Then her door clicked shut again. The next morning, my laptop was where I'd left it. But the screen brightness had been adjusted. I knew she'd been there. I added it to the list. Ella accessed my laptop at 12:30 a.m. Thursday came with forced normalcy. Dad cracked jokes over breakfast that nobody laughed at. Mom fussed about her flowers wilting. Ella acted busy, though her eyes kept darting toward me like she was testing whether I knew. I smiled. I spoke gently. I played my part, but underneath I was calculating. I started going through household bills more carefully, line by line. That's when I noticed new charges. Restaurants I'd never visited, online stores I didn't use. Even a streaming subscription under my name that I'd never opened. Each discovery was a nail in the coffin of who I thought my family was. That evening, I went for coffee with my friend Christine, one of the few people I could still trust. We met downtown at a quiet cafe, tucked between a bookstore and a florist shop. She was already there, laptop open, her long brown hair tied up, eyes warm as always. "You look like you haven't slept," she said. I laughed, but it came out hollow. I told her everything. The phone call, the withdrawals, Ella's midnight visit, my parents' lies. When I finished, she sat quietly for a long time, just watching me. "Daisy," she said finally, "you've always taken care of everyone. Maybe it's time to take care of yourself." Her words hit harder than I expected. Simple, but true. "I can't just throw them out," I said. "They're my family." "Family doesn't steal from you," she replied softly. "They don't plan behind your back." I wanted to argue, but I couldn't, because deep down, I knew she was right. I left the cafe with a strange calm settling over me. Not peace. Exactly, but clarity. The kind you get right before making a hard decision. That night, I sat at my desk again. I opened my online banking. This time determined to look deeper. 6 months of statements. One by one. It was worse than I thought. Tens of thousands gone. Transfers linked to Ella's account matched almost exactly with Mom's. Little shopping sprees. I'd thought those new handbags and spa trips were harmless indulgences. They weren't. They were financed by me without me ever knowing. Even Dad's car repairs had been paid from my account. And all this time, all this time, they'd smiled at me over dinner. When I finally shut the laptop, it was nearly 2 in the morning. I sat there in the dark, hands clasped together, pulse thudding in my ears. It wasn't just that they'd betrayed me. It was that they'd done it so easily. I had been nothing more than a convenience. On Friday, I made a quiet decision. I went to the bank during my lunch break. The teller, a kind woman named Hannah, helped me open a new savings account under my name only. No joint access. No family privileges. When I transferred half of my remaining funds there, I felt something lift off my chest. For the first time, I was protecting myself. Back home, I changed all my passwords. Removed Mom's access from the shared account. Set up 2-factor authentication. It was tedious work, but every click felt like reclaiming a part of my life. That evening, Mom asked if I wanted to go shopping with her that weekend. I smiled and said, "Maybe next time." She looked disappointed, but I could tell she sensed something shifting. At dinner, Ella complained that her phone was dying, and she needed a new one for her business. Dad chimed in, suggesting maybe I could help out. I set down my fork, smiled politely, and said, "I'll think about it." Inside, I wasn't thinking. I was done. That night, I typed my final note for the week. Mom lied about gifts. Ella used my money. Dad knows and says nothing. They believe I'm still in the dark. I stared at the words until my eyes blurred. Then I closed the phone, turned off the light, and let the darkness settle around me because I knew what was coming. I was going to confront them. And when I did, nothing in this house or this family would ever be the same again. Dinners in our house used to be sacred. They were the one thing that still made us feel like a family. Laughter at the table, food shared from the same dishes, the comfort of ritual. But that Sunday, I woke up knowing it would be our last. The day moved in slow motion. Morning light spilled through the blinds, painting pale stripes across the dining room floor. The smell of roast chicken drifted through the house. My mother's humming floated from the kitchen, soft, tuneless, almost peaceful. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have believed everything was fine. But underneath that hum was tension, a thin, invisible wire pulled tight. I could feel it in every breath, every clink of a dish, every forced smile. I spent the morning rereading the notes on my phone. Each entry was a piece of the puzzle, and together they told a story I couldn't ignore. Transfers, lies, theft, mockery. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was evidence. By the time the clock hit 6, the table was set, perfectly, like always. Mom's best plates, the crystal glasses we never used except for special occasions. Dad sat at the head of the table, knife and fork lined up with military precision. Ella arrived last, dressed up like she had somewhere better to be. She looked at me once, just long enough to smirk, and sat down. Dinner started quietly. Mom asked about work. Dad commented on the weather. Ella scrolled her phone under the table, pretending she wasn't. I answered every question politely, my voice calm, steady. But inside, my pulse thundered. I had rehearsed this moment for days, playing it in my head until every sentence, every pause felt carved into my bones. Halfway through the meal, I set my fork down. "Can I ask you all something?" They froze. Mom's smile flickered. Dad looked up, cautious. Ella sighed, annoyed already. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Mom asked, feigning innocence. I looked her straight in the eyes. "You didn't hang up last week." The words dropped like stones into the silence. For a second, no one moved. Then Dad blinked. "What are you talking about?" "I heard you," I said quietly. "All of you. I heard what you said after the call." Mom's hand tightened around her napkin. "Daisy, that's ridiculous. You said living with me was unbearable." My voice didn't shake. "You said you were only staying because of my money." Ella's eyes widened, just for a second, then narrowed again. She leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "Wow, you were eavesdropping." "I didn't have to," I said. "You didn't hang up." Dad opened his mouth, then closed it. Mom's breathing quickened. Ella laughed. Short, cruel. "You're so dramatic, Daisy. You probably misheard." I reached into my pocket, pulled out a folded sheet of paper, and set it on the table. Bank statements. printed, highlighted, every transfer, every withdrawal. Then maybe you can explain these. Mom's face drained of color. Dad's jaw tightened. Ella's smirk faltered. That's private, Mom stammered. Where did you even get those? They're my accounts, I said. My money. The money you've been moving without asking me. Dad pushed back his chair slightly, like he needed space to think. It's not what you think, he said carefully. We were helping Ella. She's been struggling and you stole from me, I interrupted. That's not help. That's theft. Mom's voice rose. Don't use that word. We're family. Family share. Sharing requires consent, I said coldly. You didn't ask. Ella slammed her phone on the table. Oh, for God's sake, it's not that serious. You have plenty. You act like you're some victim when you've been living easy for years. My blood went cold. Easy? I repeated. I've been paying for this house. For you. For your mistakes. Her expression twisted. You think you're so perfect. So noble. You enjoy it, don't you? Playing the martyr while we all bow down to St. Daisy, the responsible one. I laughed, quietly. If that's what you think, then maybe you should stand on your own 2 feet for once. Mom reached across the table, desperate now. Daisy, please! We didn't mean it. It was just talk, you know how people vent. No, I said, cutting her off. It wasn't venting. It was betrayal. Dad's voice boomed suddenly, sharper than I'd heard in years. Enough! You're twisting everything. We love you, Daisy, but you've made this house impossible. You hold everything over our heads. We can't breathe here. I stared at him. You can't breathe because you can't control me anymore. The words came out steady, almost calm, though my chest ached with every syllable. I looked at Ella again. And you've been taking money behind my back for months. She rolled her eyes. I was going to pay you back. I reached for my phone, opened a photo, and slid it across the table. It was a screenshot of her public post. The one where she'd called me a stingy control freak who hoards her money. Like that? I asked softly. Her face went red. You went through my profile? No, I said. Someone sent it to me. People see who you really are even when I refuse to. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Daisy, we were wrong, okay? Please don't do this. We'll fix it. I stood up. You can't fix what you destroyed. The room went still. I looked at each of them, the parents who raised me, the sister who grew up beside me and saw strangers. I want you out of my house, I said. Tonight. Dad's face hardened. You can't mean that. I do. Mom reached for my hand, but I stepped back. Ella scoffed, folding her arms again. Fine, you'll regret it. You think you're so strong now, but you'll miss us. Maybe, I said. But I'll finally have peace. I left the table, went to my room, and locked the door. Their voices followed, angry, pleading, breaking. I didn't answer. I sat on the floor, back against the bed. Tears finally coming. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet. Exhausted tears that came from years of being used and finally stopping at by midnight. The house was silent again. The next morning, I woke to the sound of wheels rolling across the floor. Suitcases. They didn't say goodbye. Mom single quotes. His favorite. Throw blanket was gone. Dad's glasses. Ella's perfume still lingered faintly in the air. Sweet and bitter at once, I stood in the doorway, watching them leave. Dad's car backed out of the driveway without a word. Just like that. They were gone. The silence that followed was unlike any I'd known. At first, it hurt. The kind of hurt that sits in your bones. I wandered from room to room like a ghost, seeing the indentations their lives had left, the empty chair, the half-full coffee mug, the faded family photo still hanging in the hallway. But beneath the grief was relief. For the first time in years, the air in that house belonged only to me. That afternoon, I got 3 text messages. From Mom. We're sorry. We never meant to hurt you. From Dad, you're overreacting, sweetheart. We'll talk when you calm down. From Ella, you didn't have to make it this dramatic. Call me. I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I called my lawyer, a quiet, sharp woman named Lydia recommended by a coworker. I told her everything. The withdrawals, the call, the evidence. She listened, taking notes without interrupting, then looked up and said, "You did the right thing. Let's make sure they can't touch your accounts again." It was the first time in weeks someone had said you did the right thing, and I believed it. By the end of that week, all my finances were secured. New accounts. New passwords. Legal notices drafted and sent. The house, the inheritance, the savings, all legally protected. I had taken back control. 6 months later, I sold the house. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it because I needed a clean slate. Too many ghosts lingered there. Too many echoes of laughter that wasn't real. My new apartment downtown was smaller, quieter. The walls were plain white, the furniture minimal. But every inch of it was mine. No secrets. No manipulation. No pretending. Christine helped me move in. She brought takeout, music, and that steady warmth I'd come to rely on. "This place suits you," she said, handing me a cup of coffee. I smiled. "It does, finally." We sat on the floor eating noodles from the carton, laughing about old college memories. For the first time in a long time, my laughter wasn't forced. Later that week, I heard through a mutual friend what had become of my family. My parents had rented a small apartment across town. Dad worked part-time at a hardware store. Mom was selling old jewelry online to make ends meet. Ella's business had collapsed completely. Her post about me had backfired. People called her out, and investors pulled away. They were surviving, but barely. And for once, I didn't feel guilty about it. They'd made their choices. I was finally making mine. I still think about that night sometimes. The call that started it all. How one missed click peeled back years of illusion. It still hurts. But it also freed me. Because the truth is, sometimes you have to lose the people you love to find yourself again. Now I wake up to quiet. Not the tense silence of secrets, but the kind that means peace. I make my own coffee, pay my own bills, live on my own terms. And I've learned something simple, something I wish I'd understood years ago. Family isn't defined by blood, it's defined by respect. By honesty, by love that doesn't keep score. I still believe in forgiveness, but forgiveness doesn't mean letting people back into the space they destroyed. It means letting go of their hold on you. To anyone listening to my story, thank you. If you've ever had to choose between your peace and people who kept taking from you, I hope you chose peace. Because sometimes survival isn't about fighting back. It's about walking away and finally truly being free.